Hey,
Hey, seamless.
yeah,
You're a professional.
well-oiled machine over here at Merge Now. Our second ever stream, still learning the ropes a
uh,
little bit.
2 in 1 day is quite like a schedule. Like even pro streamers struggle with two a day.
Yeah, well, I think there's the novelty is definitely doing some heavy lifting here. It's exciting and it's fun for me, and it keeps working, which to me is like the biggest excitement of all.
Mhm.
So, yeah, maybe I'll get to the point where I'm so jaded about it that like I'll be rooting for like some horrific technical failure just to like feel something again. But right now,
Yeah,
just when
yeah,
things go
yeah.
smoothly, it's like
Or you get successful enough to like turn hostile against your own audience and start to start to be
exactly.
angry at them.
Start fights with the chat. Speaking of which, we have a chat. Like this, look, Tierney's here.
Yeah.
Tierney was on earlier in the day. After this stream's over, go check out our the past the one past stream from this account, and you can check out my
Mhm.
conversation with Tierney this morning. That was a ton of fun. Great way to kick this off. Mahmood, you said you managed to catch a little bit of it,
It
and
was. I think it's yeah. It's. I think that you've picked two guests from like opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of like you've picked someone like who's from the marketing side, like pushing things from that side, like towards the engineering, etc. And I'm coming in from the other side, which is like engineering trying to figure out how marketing works. So it's like you've covered the spectrum of communication today, which is pretty cool. I'm in good company, I think.
You are, yeah. Tierney's awesome. You're great. And I wish I could say that I planned it exactly the way you worded it. It was really much more that kind of a little bit more of happenstance, and just the fact that you are both cool people who I enjoy talking to, and I want to like highlight the things that you all do and the thoughts that you all have. And also I think the diversity that you mentioned is super, super important for me as well. I do want to make sure to get just like a wide variety of perspectives because there are a lot of interesting people with different backgrounds, and yeah, love talking to all of them. So before we
Sorry,
go,
it's tyranny or said product as well. So it's not just marketing. I was just making things simple, tyranny. I was trying to cover everything so that it can all be said.
for the
It's all
record,
good. Yeah,
product
yeah.
too.
It's
Tierney
stated. I
is a
stand corrected.
Renaissance woman. She does many things and wears many hats,
I
and
respect that.
and is still, I think, getting comfortable with the marketing hat. So, yeah. So let's. Oh, I'm being told I need to flip my video. The number plates are backwards and it's doing my head in. I have no idea how to do that. So we have our first technical issue. It's finally happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll figure that out. I see the Magical Mystery
It's
Plant Tour is
it's
also
a
backwards.
yeah. It's all
We'll
good.
we'll work on that. Taking notes. I'll have my production team get right on that.
Great.
So Mahmood, let's introduce you first of all, because I'm sure there's a bunch of people who came here from you tweeted about this, I tweeted about this, but for those who maybe come from my feed, haven't seen me retweet you a bunch of times, or somehow aren't familiar, somehow have not, like, if you follow me and haven't watched Mahmood's videos, I don't know what the hell you're doing, but first, okay, who are you? Like, who is Mahmood Hikmet, man of mystery?
Well, to firstly send a correction back at Tyranny, who just said that I'm from Australia. I'm from New Zealand. So
Implied.
I would like that to be put at the record. But I'm an autonomous vehicle engineer from New Zealand. I work for an autonomous shuttle company for level 4 autonomous shuttles called Omeo, who I don't represent right now. I'm here as myself.
A
And
quick point.
yeah.
People who come on this stream they come as humans. We meet together here as humans, human to human. I think that's just a policy I want to have set going forward. So thank you for clarifying. And by all means, like any clarifications of that kind that you need to make, great. But like, just so folks know, go ahead.
Cool. So yeah, autonomous vehicle engineer from New Zealand. But I've the way we met is through when I started to make YouTube videos around autonomous vehicles, and I guess one of them got large enough and like relevant enough to be spotted by a lot of AV people on Twitter, and then that's my first video that blew up about. It was called "Is Elon Musk Killing People," which I think is a bit yellow as far as like a title goes. But I was trying to like branch out and try to capture as many people. But that video was mostly about driver monitoring systems and autopilot, like that, and autono washing. That's actually what it started off as. But the reason I got into all of that is because I've always had a penchant for teaching. Like teaching is just something I've really enjoyed at every point of my career. I also really like performing and being in the center of attention. I did like stand up and improv comedy as I was going up. I was in adverts on TV for a little bit, so wow. I definitely have that like I want to be an actor sort of phase that I got over. Couldn't quite cut it as a comedian. Sorry.
I know. I was gonna say I didn't know. I had no idea that you'd been in advertisements. You're like a big star. You've been on the television.
Yeah. If you were in the UK circa 2009, this was the face of Oatibix, the oat alternative to Weetabix. That was me. There was an advert they had to film in New Zealand because the roads looked like the UK and the weather was better. So they shipped like a production team from the UK to New Zealand. And it was my first audition when I had like an agent, etc. And yeah, I managed to become the face of Oatibix.
So this is wonderful. I'm learning new things as we speak. So you mentioned you're an engineer. I mean, you have a PhD. You have academic background and got into sort of engineering that way.
Yeah, like always been fascinated with maths and physics, programming since I was young. I think my first program I wrote when I was 8 years old in a language called QBasic, which no one uses anymore. But I've always loved programming and figuring out problems to solutions, which is what engineering is essentially. And I think also why I found my PhD very unsatisfying, because that's answering questions rather than solving problems, which is a whole thing I can get to talking about. But engineering is like what I've always loved. And I think I'm trying to do my best to find a way to combine all of my very varied interests together with one another. And this is my attempt at it. And that's what my YouTube channel is.
JJ Ricks, what's up? Mr. Johnson, glad to see you here today. Yes, you do have to find those ads. In fact, now I'm considering creating some kind of like bounty to the first person who finds these ads. Are they on YouTube?
It's not hidden. If you go to my YouTube channel and you scroll down to my playlist that is me on other channels, you should see one called Oatibix My Sharona. And that's
the link is conveniently right there in the chat. So anybody who wants to check that out. In fact, maybe in a little bit we could watch the Oatibix advertisement. Sure. No pressure, but
it has nothing to do with autonomous vehicles, really. But yeah, more than happy to relive that experience.
Okay, so I did want to ask about autonomous vehicles. I'm always fascinated by like what got people into autonomous vehicles, and for me the story is really boring, and so I'm not going to tell my story right now, but you it's also very short, but like you tell me yours. How did you get from science, math, how did that lead to autonomous vehicles specifically?
So it was accidental, if we want to call it that. Like, it's not what I set out to do. I've never really had an interest in cars. Like, that's just never been, like, when people talk about what's your favorite model of car, it's like I drive a 2010 Toyota Sai. Like, I don't, that is the car of someone who doesn't care about cars, just wants a car they don't think about.
For Americans, a Sai, I think it's roughly equivalent to a Corolla. So
it's
a
like
little bigger.
on the spectrum, it's between like a Prius and the Camry. Like it's halfway.
Okay.
If those exist over there.
Yeah, I know the side doesn't exist. I'm trying to. Anyway, we don't have to worry. Well, I'm sure someone in the
but it's
chat
a car.
will figure this out.
It's a car I don't have to think about or anything like that. Like very much like programming, etc., was what I was doing. I was working for a company called HMI Technologies, still sort of working there, and their main focus was intelligent transportation systems from an infrastructure side. So looking at electronic road signs mainly, but road sensors, etc., and all of that. And that's what my PhD also ended up being on. I was looking at issues of fairness and how they relate to intelligent transportation systems. And it's a big thesis that no one's really ever going to read, but infrastructure is mainly what I was focused on of transportation. And I was coming into it from a computer engineering side rather than from the traffic engineering side, like civil engineering, etc. So we had this company. It was going well, pretty big in the Australian and New Zealand markets. And then about in the year 2015, we had a bit of an introspective look at ourselves and we said, 20 years from now, are we still going to be selling the same products, which are electronic signs that communicate with a human using light up letters on a board? What would that look like in the future, say, when autonomous vehicles are there and you don't need something like a visual representation? So we, being engineers, we wanted to get our hands dirty with it and be part of that change rather than have to respond to it as it comes up. So we brought the first autonomous shuttle to New Zealand. We started a trial down at Christchurch Airport. We had another 2 going on Australia, but essentially we were like, how do we work with these autonomous vehicles that are coming out as an infrastructure company? Yeah. And our experience with them was that they were so closed off and siloed that they were extremely protective about their engineering. So we wanted the autonomous shuttle to stop when it got to a red traffic light. And we thought that was like a really basic, like, what signal do we need to send to pause trajectory? We can handle the infrastructure side. Tell us what to send, or how do we hook into the vehicle system to make it pause so that we can handle that? And their response was, no, there's no way you're going to interface with anything with our vehicle. You bought the vehicle with the list of features that it had on there. That wasn't one of those features. So wait for us to make that feature, or you can pay us to develop that for you, which was like not good. That's like the opposite of like back then, cooperative ITS was one of the big buzzwords, which is like many manufacturers working together and like competitors even speaking, like V2V, vehicle to vehicle communication happening between different competitors. So like it was not the vision that we saw, and we tried to find a company that would work with us in that way. The closest we found was Ollie, who were like, we won't let you interface with anything that we do, but you can build your own robotic system and someone can choose to buy that if they want. So this
is, I'm sorry, just to pause you there really quick. This is Local Motors Ollie shuttle.
Yeah, which is, I think they closed down.
They just shut down. Yeah.
Yeah. But like their offering, which was the most dynamic we came across, was like, hey, you can build your own silo if you like. We're like, we just want to work with other people without having to build an entire driving system. But we couldn't find anyone that would do that back in 2016. So we just said, well, either we wait for someone to come along that does that, or we become that company. And so that's where Omeo was born. And Omeo is HMI with wheels on either side. So it's HMI with wheels.
Yeah.
And that's how we were born. And that's how I ended up pivoting into the autonomous vehicle space. But it's very different from the rest of the space because our target is public transportation for first and last mile. Like, we're not focused on a car that a consumer would buy. And we're also a company that's propped up by another like profitable company. So there's no need for like these like financial raises. There isn't a need to like talk to the consumer. So it's a very it's a very like fortunate position I find myself in, where I don't need to rely on hype and
Right.
drumming that up as part of my job as someone who works in, say, a startup who's trying to excite venture capitalists would. So that's allowed me to be sort of not have to sell my soul to the devil or anything, to like speak as a representative of the company when I go places. So that's how it got there, and it developed on from there, and you can fill in the rest.
Yeah, no, that's super cool. It's funny too, because there's so many echoes in in the story you just told, to like some of the stuff that Terry and I were just talking about this morning on the feed about, sort of how for a long time the vision for autonomous vehicles was that it was going to be this infrastructure based thing, and that really with the DARPA challenges, that was really where sort of ITS kind of became its own thing and autonomous vehicles became their own thing. And we were discussing it in terms of just how the autonomous vehicles are designed to not rely on the infrastructure, right? And to some extent, part of that came out of the fact that the military was funding it, and but also like that's also so that's part of it. But I think you're talking also about almost another layer of this, where it's also that because these are private companies, and because there's so much there is so much hype. There was, a lot of money being raised and things like that. Then like there's this secretiveness, right? And I think maybe to some extent, and maybe I guess there's a chicken and egg thing here. With did the infrastructure free approach, create the secretiveness, or I mean they're clearly tied up together, but like these most AVs are not really for the most part designed to be like a piece of hardware that like a community can sort of gather around and everyone can kind of touch the piece of it that relates to the work that they're doing.
You've brought up a really good point that I've been thinking about a lot recently. So it's like, as you and Taryn said, like back then, like I'm talking 12, 13, like very early teens, late noughties, is like it was very much infrastructure based. So like virtual traffic lights, where you can have vehicles weaving in between each other as like the traffic lights told the vehicles where to go and what to do, etc. But then we found that maybe Wave DSRC, 802.11p, all those like communication systems that were built up didn't take off the way that a lot of people thought that they would. I mean, that was an integral part of my PhD, but like by the time I finished my PhD, no one had adopted this technology in like a great way. And so like none of the manufacturers could rely on it as something that was always going to be there. So you saw this like centralization or like pulling in of the vehicle's abilities, so that every vehicle had to be self-sufficient and didn't really care about what infrastructure was around it. And that was like when I think that's when DSIC ended up ultimately dying. And now but now it's making a bit of a resurgence again.
I was gonna say, is it all the way? Is it actually all the way dead?
It's changed. It's different. So now it's a bit of a hybrid approach, where we understand that an autonomous vehicle needs to be able to be completely self-sufficient if it's disconnected from everything. The safety needs to be guaranteed regardless of what happens. But you can augment what the vehicle's capable of doing with extra functionality using the infrastructure. And that's the key. It's like the infrastructure makes it better, but without the infrastructure, safety doesn't go away.
It's not safety critical, basically, yeah.
Yeah, but that's happening because 5G is starting to come out as well. And the thing that 5G has over something like DSRC is 5G allows very low latency communication between things that are relatively close to each other. It's not exactly peer-to-peer. It's a little bit, I'm not going to go into it. It's a bit complicated, but like it allows very fast communication between different nodes. DSRC is sort of like a Wi-Fi that's set up ad hoc. And as you're going around, you're creating these networks with everything else that's around you. Now, of the two technologies, DSRC is a much better technology for vehicle communication. But the weakness it has is that it's only good for vehicle communication. So to implement it from an infrastructure side, you need the transport authority to say, well, we think DSRC is going to be good, so let's implement DSRC capabilities in here. But there's no manufacturer who currently uses DSRC because no authority is putting DSRC out. So you're in this like stalemate where everyone's like, this is the best technology, but no one uses it. So why should we invest money in doing this? Whereas the strongest thing 5G has going for it is that it is going to be rolled out regardless of whether vehicle communication happens or not, on the back of people wanting fast YouTube access or the myriad of other B2B applications that are around. So it's going to be there regardless, so you can rely on it a little bit more.
Yeah, I think C-V2X, the cellular V2X, also enables more. There are like more things you can do with it than DSRC. I think it's like a richer thing as well. But it's funny. Like I've always kind of avoided. I think when I have a lot of interests and obviously I try and cover a lot of different things, in my work and whatever. But there are some things that you have to just decide like, okay, I'm not going to invest my time in trying to be like up to snuff on this. And honestly, connected vehicle technology is really one of those things because it's like, there's a technology problem there, but like so much of it seems to be almost a mix of like a political problem and even like a game theory problem where like it's getting these groups to agree and collaborate who's going to take the first step and like it's just sort of easier. Again, this is like exactly what Terry and I were talking about for a little bit earlier today, but like it's just almost easier for people to say, forget all you guys, we're just going to go heads down and develop the technology that doesn't need any of you idiots because it's kind of a frustrating thing a little bit that like as humans we can't like get together and work some stuff out. And in this country, and I know like this is a little different in some countries. I know nobody has like the 1950s GM like connected car utopia that was sort of once envisioned, but like certainly having done a road trip in Japan, there's a lot of like infrastructure connected information that goes to your car and on signs, and it's actually quite amazing as an American. But like it's
I've got a Japanese car with buttons that don't do anything over here. There's like one with an ambulance that I can press, but nothing shows up.
When it's funny too, because the signs that you were that the company initially was doing, these light up signs. I mean, here in the United States, I won't say in the United States. I'll say here in Oregon, which tends to be a little bit behind the curve in terms of infrastructure investments compared to other states. We're not the biggest or don't have the biggest economy, but we got those light up signs maybe like less than 10 years ago. Like before that, there was like none, and now we have like a couple on the freeway. Well, in the last couple of years, there's been more, but it's kind of hilarious that in some places it was like people who are in that business were like, this is like, how long is this really gonna happen? And around the same time, we were only just starting as yokels in Oregon. We're only just starting to even get our first one.
Yeah, and that comes into like the whole thing with people who are very tech obsessed. They tend to forget about how long market penetration takes, and there's places still running Windows like XP and Windows 98 as part of like critical systems that are there that citizens depend on. It's just what happens. And so of course you're going to get places that are like that, and I think it's going to be decades and decades and decades before rollouts happen on a very, very, very large scale that they're universal.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, tell techies about the CAN bus and how long that's been on cars, and we're still using that. And that's more of a, if it's not broke, don't fix it kind of a thing, or,
it's also not enough. It doesn't have enough bandwidth to cover a lot of the stuff that we need to cover, like sending LiDAR point clouds. Or like sending frequent high definition images across it. Like that's going to completely flood it. So you end up having either multiple CAN buses or like a CAN bus, which does your control messages. And then you've got like an Ethernet connection inside your vehicle that does it's
Okay, so we're getting into a technical conversation, which was not the point of this stream.
No.
So this seems like a really good time to ask you, because you mentioned, math and science, and you did your doctorate, and you went on this journey towards AVs. At what point did you decide to start making videos, and why? What were you going for?
So I remember doing a talk, maybe I did a talk in 2019, like very late 2019, about the trolley problem at a conference. And this was a talk that, because I was so sick of dealing with the trolley problem as someone in the AV industry, like from the engineering side, which it's a nonsense problem. I have a video about it. Go to my channel, check it out. But like, it's a nonsense problem that makes no sense from an engineering point of view. But all these very smart people sitting around thinking, oh yeah, what a good ponderous problem that we should dedicate some of our very limited time on. Where it's like, no, there's like other ethical problems in the AV space that really need your attention. The trolley problem is like a distraction from that. And you only think it's important because no engineer has taken the time to walk you through why it doesn't make sense. It's because the only people who think that the trolley problem is a real, genuine problem are people who don't understand the technical part of an autonomous vehicle. And that's fine. That's not on them. I think that's on the engineers. And that's where my want to like communicate started to really come out a little bit more, because I felt that my job and my industry was being threatened by having decisions made about it by people who didn't understand the industry. And it's very hard to tell those people apart sometimes. So I wanted to be able to have that in a very accessible way that isn't patronizing. Like, I didn't want to make someone feel stupid as I was explaining basics to them, but I wanted them to walk away without having the like prerequisite of having a PhD or like knowing what an ADAS is or any of that. I didn't want to assume they knew that, and just have them walk away knowing the answer to the trolley problem. So I got frustrated that there were so few people in that conference room. I'm like, I'm speaking to 80 people here. They're very receptive and they like what I'm saying, but like, there's millions of people out there that still believe that the trolley problem is real. How many conference rooms will I need to go through to like talk to all of them? Do all of them go to conferences? Like, there's the like, how do I connect with them? And so that's where the YouTube channel started. I'm like, that's the first video I wanted to make, and I think it was the third video I ended up making for YouTube. I streamed for a year before that video on Twitch. So 2020, I spent streaming on Twitch, where I was wanting to create things that would help me make the videos for YouTube on my Twitch channel. So I think the first 3 months of my Twitch streaming was me building a vehicle simulator that simulated the trolley problem. And it would decide whether it would end up running over a baby Yoda or a grandma. And we could change the variables on the stream of like, the grandma's this much more important than the baby, and like, the vehicle needs to stay on the road, it can't veer off the road, and it can only brake this much. So like, all the questions people had, I'm like, let's put it in and show you how it works. So I built this. I even did this where I set it was so fun. We ended up, it was running on penalties, so it's like, it's a penalty if you hit a person.
Yeah,
I changed it so it was like, it's a reward, like it's a negative penalty if you end up hitting someone. So it ended up being this like seeking missile that was like hunting out grandmas on the like racetrack and just trying to
I was gonna say, if my partner had been responsible for coding this, man, like those grandmas would have been hit every single time. She loves Baby Yoda. I don't know what it is. Like, I mean, it's cute, obviously, but it would not have been a conundrum for her. There would have been no like moral quandary. She would have just run, could have been her own grandma.
Well, the the reason I use Baby Yoda is because I tried to have a baby model in there, and I was relying on free assets, and all the baby ones were like really creepy. And so while I was searching Baby Yoda came up, and I'm like, people care about this, so let's put it in there.
So let's hear some feedback in the chat if you want Moody to dig up his trolley problem simulator featuring Baby Yoda and like demonstrate it on a future stream here. If you want to see that happen, either add us on Twitter or drop something in the chat and let us know. And even if none of you do that, I might still force him to dig it up anyway, because this sounds hilarious and memey and exactly what I want to do here. The other thing I want to say about the trolley problem really quickly here is that I so share your frustration about this. The MIT Moral Machines thing.
Oh God, project. Yeah. Oh,
this is literally the most, as far as I know, the most viewed / interacted with piece of autonomous vehicle related content that has ever existed on the internet or anywhere. And like, it's hard to explain like the extent to which that frustrates me, because it's just, well, you did a good job of sort of explaining what, but it just, it's not even the issue, right? It doesn't even matter how, and it's not about solving it really. It's about sort of getting people's thoughts about it, you know, and this is something that like, I've really struggled to understand, like, how do you sort of take the fact that like people are so overwhelmingly interested in a piece of or an aspect of this technology that just doesn't matter really from an engineering perspective anyway, and sort of redirect that towards learning things that can help you really understand like meaningful things about this technology.
Well, an engineer's instinct for that is just to ignore it and be like, those people don't know what they're talking about. I'm busy doing engineering work. And so they keep doing the engineering work. But it's like, for me, as someone interacting with those people, knowing that some of those people are also regulators and making the rules that the engineers will then have to follow, like, I'm like, this is something we need to address. And I try to like, rather than making it like me complaining to people about why something doesn't work, I'm trying to teach them something so that they walk away learning more, and then through that show how it doesn't apply to something that they may have already assumed. So but like also lean into how much something bothers you. Like, people connect with authenticity. So I've like, from my improv days, it's like, and stand-up days, it's like you plus 10% is what makes you an engaging person or like an engaging speaker. So it's not about like going up and pretending like you're a different ultra confident person. It's just about taking what makes you you and turning it up slightly so that you exaggerate the thing. So if something is boring to you, be really bored with it. If something's exciting to you, show that excitement and let people join you in that. And if something's frustrating, like, show that. But like, take them through and help them understand it from your point of view and have them walking away like with more than what they came into. And that's my philosophy on it, at least.
I feel like a good metaphor for this would be, making a grandma hunting simulator with the regular baby. That's just boring. You get Baby Yoda in the mix, and all of a sudden you've got people's attention, right? It's that extra 10% that really.
That was not my intention. And by the way, I'm on Team Grandma. I think it's easier to make a new baby than it is to make a new grandma. So that's the team I'm on from those two.
So we're gonna have to. Okay, so we have literally a third of our viewers want us to do a future stream of the grandma hunting simulator. So I don't think we have a choice in that matter anymore. We'll talk about maybe potentially having a kill grandma versus kill Baby Yoda debate between you and my partner. I'm not sure she'll go for it, but I think she definitely is passionate enough to make strong arguments about why your grandma should be flattened. Okay. So Okay, so I think it's interesting that you and just okay, so I'm obviously like an old man here, right? And I'm learning about streaming in 2022. You were doing it a couple years ago, and you migrated sort of from that to YouTube as a boomer, in spirit, if not in actual fact. What so what was the thinking behind that, and like what is the pitfall that you were avoiding that I need to now worry about?
Okay, so I've actually got some of my viewers who are from my Twitch days in the chat now. So like there's so many names I recognize there. It's so good to see all of you guys. Yeah, David's one of them. David actually also streams. He's a Twitch streamer that worked on a train project. He was making like trains on. He was a live coder as well. Anyway, so like what I spent like the first year I was doing all of that stuff on Twitch, the thing that bugged me the most, like I was growing. I got to a point where I was having like 25 to 30 people on every stream, and I had this like nice little community that I was fostering. So that was really, really nice and really rewarding. I was going live for, at first it was 3 times a week, then it switched to 2 times a week. These were like 4-hour streams in the evening after work. And the thing about Twitch is that if you're not live, you're not growing. So if you don't hit the go live button at the time that you're expected to, like you've trained your audience to do, because they need to be there and it's so much about that interaction, then you're going to start to like drop off of people's radars. You're going to drop out of the thing that it is that they do. And Twitch is absolutely terrible at discoverability. So if you record something with someone, very few people, even if they follow you, go back and watch a stream that happened. The interesting things happen from how live it is and interactive it is. Whereas, and I was in like a terrible time zone for Twitch streaming because I was in New Zealand. Everyone had gone to sleep by the time I was streaming, and if I was lucky and I streamed for long enough, I'd start getting like Germans and like some people from the UK, etc., or insomniacs from the US. But like that's who my audience was. And if you look at like the Twitch usability graph, I started streaming like at like the base of the trough. So it's like that was the same problem that I saw when I was in that conference room saying, I'm doing something here and there's not enough people to see what it is that I'm trying to do and get to, I saw in Twitch. So looking at YouTube, discoverability is a lot better, which means that if I make a video about something, there is a chance that someone will search for that and get into it. They've also got a recommendation algorithm where if people watch videos like the ones that I'm making topics on, they might stumble onto me. That doesn't really happen on Twitch in any meaningful way. You've got like categories or topics that you can stream under, and you can go to someone else streaming the same game, but you don't know if it's the same vibe. You don't know if they have the same values that you liked about that one streamer. So, and a lot of the people I wanted to target as well were boomers, not like you style boomer, which is just a geriatric millennial, but like say like policy people and they're like 50s and 60s who need to watch the videos that I make. They're never going to be on Twitch at the time that I happen to be talking about the thing I want them to know about. So I have to make a YouTube video which they can watch in their own time, because they've barely understood YouTube. How are they going to understand Twitch? So that's where it came down to. It came down to me making the most of the time that I'm spending on content creation so that people can end up accessing the things that I work on.
Okay. So you sold me on definitely on YouTube versus Twitch, which you already had. But where I get hung up on this is doesn't editing videos suck? Like, isn't that
it sucks so much? It's the worst. It is the worst thing.
Good. I wanted to be clear about this.
It's so boring and mundane. Like, there's some people who really like it, who really get off on editing stuff, but the amount of time it takes to like add B-roll. So it's not just like me talking to a camera the whole time, like adding relevant clips. Each of those clips that appear for like 2 seconds takes about maybe like 10 minutes, like between 5 to 10 minutes to go and add and clip and put into there. So like it's this really long editing thing. And when I was first making videos, I had a list of bullet points and I'd speak into the camera about the bullet points. But I also was like, I mean, you can hear the way that I'm speaking now. This isn't how I sounded my videos. My sentences are a lot better constructed and they're targeted because I want to make the most of the time that people have to tune in. Whereas with live streaming, it's a lot more like, let's fill in dead air a little bit. You can have some sentences that drag on a little bit and you can say ums and ahs and it's fine. People don't expect the same quality. But I started using a teleprompter for my videos, and that's really reduced the amount of editing that I need to do, because rather than chopping my sentences up because I tend to lose focus or maybe lose track or say something wrong, I can write out the script in my own voice and then just look into the camera as I'm speaking, and I don't need to edit. It removed that step from the editing process, which is do my sentences make sense. But I still haven't found a workaround to like, how do I get the correct B-roll all the time? How do I make the right graphic? How do I represent the thing that I'm talking about in an easy visual way for people to get? And that takes a long time. But so does the research. Like if you've got a video about Tesla, and which is something I've been working on now for months, like every time you go and work on the script, things have changed. The like landscape has changed. Something different's happened. What you've said is no longer applicable. And so like it's just, yeah, every aspect of the content creation thing is stressful, but I find nothing more rewarding than like hitting like publish and like seeing people start to interact with it. So like that is the carrot that I've got in front of me all the time. And sometimes it's too far away to see, but it's just really rewarding when you have my favorite part of teaching has always been the light bulb moment. Like when you have a student that's struggling with something and then you manage to say something in such a way that makes sense to them that they're like, I get this. Like I suddenly get this concept that we're talking about. And then they run off and start to like, they're able to do everything else. That's what I'm always chasing with people. And my YouTube videos have been the most effective way that I've been able to do that. Also the most effective way to harbor to generate death threats and abuse in my DMs for some reason. But
you can do that on Twitter. Yeah, you can do that on Twitter with much less work, let me tell you. If the goal is the death threats, like there are easier ways. And the editing thing is funny. It's funny, it occurs to me. You have your ODBix ads. I actually, as a young man, used to make films with. It's funny. I don't think anybody online really knows. Like my close friends, some of my close friends know about this, but like not many people. I used to make movies with my cousins. Like cousins lived on the East Coast, and we would make movies together. We wrote and filmed several movies with their camcorder. And like literally we would just shoot it in sequence. Like we would, and like oftentimes I would be writing it as we shot, like didn't even know where it was going. Like it was super amateur. And yet some of them are, and actually one of these films is on YouTube. And so maybe we'll have to also do a future stream. So we've got the Grandma Murder Simulator. We'll definitely have to do a stream on that. But then I think we need to do like Ed and Moody, like embarrassing past videos.
I've got a video like that as well up. I used to also make videos, and there's one on my channel as well where it's like a 6-minute long video, also shot in sequence when I was 16. Which is fun. That was really
fun. Is yours taped over like an old like VHS of like that someone had recorded like a TV show on, and so like every once in a while in between the cuts where they don't match up, you'll get like a second of commercial just like popping up.
Not quite, but we had to shoot it. We had to shoot it at 2 times when we borrowed the camera from work. Not from work, from school. And the second lot of shots had a smudge on the lens from the other group that used it. So you can see whether we shot it in the first set because there's a smudge on the second half of the video.
Mine, there's a couple times where we had to do retakes and like a door will open and then the door will open again. Because there was no, like, we couldn't have edited it if we wanted to. Anyway, I think because of that's my only experience with video, I have a little bit of like a hang up around editing, which is why I like the idea of doing live. But you're absolutely right.
You're gonna suck. You're gonna be so bad at it, Ed. Like the first time you do it, like if you're not looking back at what you made 6 months ago and cringing, you're not growing as a content creator. So the first time you do it is the worst time you're going to do it, and it's going to suck. But you're going to learn the workflows. You're going to learn how to do better things. You're going to learn like color correction, audio mixing, all of those things that you've never thought about. The importance of B-roll, when to put your like, hey, if you're really enjoying this, maybe you should think about subscribing or liking the video. Really helps the channel. Like all those calls to action, like. Where do you do like it's so much to learn, and there is no way if you are gonna be sitting by thinking I'm gonna just go and learn and do as many courses as I can so that it's perfect from the get-go, you're never gonna be ready to do the first thing. So embrace the suck and just do it. Like it's gonna be
I haven't even I briefly contemplated editing the audio for the Autonocast episodes and was very quickly like no, not going to do that. Some kinds of work I find I can do endlessly, and some kinds I just anyway. We'll see if I ever get sucked into the edited video thing. But I think this is a good moment to maybe watch a video of yours.
Okay, yeah.
So I mean, I definitely I want to do at least one of the sort of educational shorts, because I think it, in fact, we could do that first if you want, because I think it really illustrates exactly what you're talking about and why I do think it's really cool, because like having done some AV education myself, like it's really hard. And again, that, that thing of the MIT moral machine, like that's something that gets all this attention, and it's because it's something that just resonates with people. And I think that doing videos like this on a platform like YouTube, like it is a really powerful way to reach this, and it reaches people that like a lot of other kinds of ways of trying to solve that problem just aren't going to necessarily. So I want to take a look at one of those. Which one's your favorite?
Okay, so we've got like
here. I'm gonna go ahead and bring your screen in real quick. Hold on.
Okay. Let me look at the list of things. Let's not pick one that's too long. Let's go on. Will level 5 be perfect? How about that one?
Okay.
Yeah?
Yeah. Sounds good.
All right. Let's go. The definition for a level 5 vehicle is a vehicle which is expected to operate anywhere a regular human driver would be reasonably expected to be able to drive. However, there are over 4 million miles of roads in the US. Chances are there is some road out there somewhere that even a well-tested level 5 vehicle is not going to be able to handle. SAE J3016 states that the manifestation of one or more performance deficiencies in the driving automation system does not automatically change the level 5 assignment, meaning that if you self-assign your vehicles as level 5 and then there's a road that it doesn't come across, then that's okay. It's just a non-perfect level 5 system, but it's still a level 5 system. The same goes for deficiencies in the user behavior. If a user falls asleep in a level 3 vehicle, so there is no user to fall back on when exiting the ODD, the vehicle doesn't stop being a level 3 vehicle, it just becomes a dangerously or irresponsibly operated level 3 vehicle. Basically, even level 5 isn't a plateau. When we get there, if we ever do, we're going to have some systems that work better than others, but they're all still going to be level 5. This video is part of a series explaining the basic concepts of autonomous vehicles and SAE J3016 in particular. You can find this video and all the rest on this playlist over here, or click here to go to the next video. Thanks so much for watching.
See, that's great. I hang on, I'm gonna turn that off. Yeah, see, these are the kinds of things that are it's so hard to give people like these, something that's like really in the depths almost of J3016, which like I've now read many, many times.
Yeah.
It's worded, I mean, and it's kind of funny that the quote is on there, and you actually, when you were reading it, you had to like truncate parts of it just to like sound like a normal human being who actually like is speaking to another human being. And there's so few ways to like get this stuff going. And like if you go on Twitter and you go to all these places, like everyone's like, well, it's usually the Tesla fans, right? But like, oh, I think they're at level 2 and I think they're almost at level 3. And like people think of it as like this performance standard that you reach. Yep. And it's like, no, that's just not it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. Yeah. See, like the purpose of these videos was just to like, in situations where someone is talking to someone who very obviously doesn't know this fact, they could link them the video and be like, hey, here, check this out. Like, just watch this. It's a minute long. It's not going to take too much of your time and you'll know about it. And then maybe they'll go watch the others. But the main reason I made these as well was so that when I'm talking about something in another video, say I mentioned the operational design domain of a video, I don't want to have to do that every single time I'm talking about vehicles, because otherwise every video is going to end up being introductory terms for like 2/3 of it so that we can get to the meat of it. So just being able to say, here's the video about ODD, go watch that. Here's the video about the dynamic driving task. And it just like shows up on the side of YouTube and like people can click and learn that if they wanted to. Those videos haven't done as well as other ones, by the way, if you looked at the view counts, because they're not made to drag people in from other parts of YouTube. These ones are meant to be like linked from other videos or shared on Twitter between 1 or 2 people. So not the best strategy in terms of like making something go a little bit viral, but I think really important to just have it as a baseline that I can then use as a resource for myself in the future.
Yeah. So before we went live, we were chatting a little bit in the green room, and you sort of mentioned that like, as you do this, like you're just gonna like it, how you do it and what you do, and it's gonna change, it's gonna evolve, and like these videos seem like a really good example of that. Where, as you say, like not every video is about like making this big splash and getting as many viewers, but like in the process of making videos, you discovered that I have this problem, which is I don't want to spend 20 minutes clearing my throat in order to, which by the way, like, and again, until you try to educate people about autonomous vehicles, you cannot appreciate what a freaking enormous problem this is. That like, you can't just dive into it. You can't just be like, okay, so like, exiting the ODD, like ODD, what, like operational design domain. Well, okay, now I need 10 minutes, 6 minutes. And it's like, and again, especially on the internet where you don't know what level folks are at. Like I almost feel like forget the social credit rating. You need like an autonomous vehicle knowledge rating. So like, okay, can we start? Like, do we need to do the ODD thing first? Or do we need to like...
Or like the unearned confidence that some people enter into conversations with? Yeah. Like that's like, you see that on Twitter with people getting rude, but like you also see that as regulators. Like I've sat in like meetings with regulators from, I'm not going to say which country, but like they come in not even knowing what the levels are, and they're the ones creating frameworks for these autonomous vehicle levels. And it's like how, like someone with that level of confidence, but that huge hole in their knowledge about the thing that they should know more than anyone else about is staggering. And so this was like hey, here's a way you can learn about it without me having to tell you that you don't actually know about this thing.
Many such cases, I'm afraid to say. Many such cases. Yeah. And I think that's kind of one of the weird things for me. And I'm kind of figuring out like how to, I mean, hopefully this is something that kind of helps at least a few people who are still watching the stream get a sense that like, AV educate, like autonomous vehicle education, it's just such a weird niche thing, and people are all, like, you say it and you could tell people are like, oh my god, like they look at you different as soon as you reference that. Like as a job, people, that it's weird enough, but as something that you're like personally passionate about, it's like even weirder, and people are like, what rabbit hole did you fall down, and like how freaking far did you fall? And I think what's frustrating about this is that, you know, like people should want to discuss this stuff or be able to discuss this stuff. And unfortunately, like it isn't something that is easy to just jump into. Like there are, and people are at different levels, and people have different things. Like different people like pick up certain aspects of it quicker than others, or, and it's just, it's a information problem that still there's so much work to be done to just figuring out, like, what do people need to know? What is the easiest way to get it to them? Like it's just, anyway.
Yeah. There's actually another problem which you haven't touched on, which is how small the AV niche really is. It's tiny. Like there are not many people that interested in AVs, and I'd say this, like it's tiny. It's not big at all. Like usually the people who are into AVs, or like channels that are coming into the AV space, are backed up by an interest in another space, and they're able to like reach a tentacle into the AV space on the back of that. So like AV reporters, like reporters interested in autonomous vehicles, are backed up by like the whatever publication, like whatever news organization that they're a part of that does everything else, so that they can afford to have an AV person in there. People who are really into, say, Tesla, I haven't seen many people like come into it from an engineering side without really having a financial incentive be a part of it. So those are like finance people who are now interested in the AV space
and making even more money. But
yeah, but like that's their channel into like, how does the AV space end up working? And that's fine. It's totally legitimate. It's like, it doesn't matter how you get here, the factors you got here. But like AV just for the sake of AV is like so small compared to something like sustainability, or like
space,
like mobile
rocket
phones, or space. Yeah. All of those things are so big.
Yeah, but that's weird to me, right? Because like you know, clearly, and actually, I mean, yeah, I like, you know, you can go on Reddit, right? And maybe this is an issue of me knowing more about AVs than about rockets, right? But like, there's obviously a lot of overlap in some of the conversation, right? And you go to Reddit, and especially like among the Tesla Musk fans, like the conversations about AVs are just like so crude, and like not, and again, it's not just the level of knowledge, but it's like it's the level of knowledge matched with this weird confidence level, and it's just bad. It's just weird and bad. And then you go and look at some of the conversations, and not all, like there's a lot of people who want to have opinions about rockets and space and things like that clearly also, even I can tell, they don't know what they're talking about. But like I feel like it's easier to find sophisticated, I don't want to just make this about Reddit, but like generally it's easier to find things, and like rockets and spaceships are things that people are like, whoa, that's cool. And like there's some of that with AVs, but like I feel like the draw could be strong. Like it's not just an education problem. It's that the draw could be stronger. But then I wonder, is it that the draw isn't strong enough because people don't even really understand what's going on with like I don't know. I feel like there's a little bit of a chicken and egg there.
Well, that's why I'm not just focusing on AVs as like a closed top. Like that's why my whole channel isn't like, what is the AV terminology for this and this? Like that's a way to like make a channel that isn't accessible to anyone unless they like pass the like very high hurdle of interested in AVs. The way you get more people in is you need to appeal to other interests and like have AVs like sneak in there a little bit. And then maybe people will like the way you said stuff or the way you made them feel in a particular video or a particular stream, that then go on to be like, what has this person also done? And then they start to go to that. And that's why I like to branch out from just focusing on AVs and trying other projects that sometimes have nothing at all to do with AVs, but they're just fun for me, and they're a way to introduce people to who I am so that they care enough about me so that they know that I care about AVs, and then through me they end up learning about AVs. Like that's the goal. And it comes back to the discussion you had this morning with Tanner. It's like you need to create that community, and then that will follow you wherever it is that you end up going. And you can have this like really weird overlap of someone who's really into AVs but also really into bees, for example. And like I love talking to this guy about bees, but he's also really into autonomous vehicles, so let's see how he handles that stuff. And like, yeah, that's how I think about it.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I think one of the factors is I think there's like some false familiarity issues as well with like, because like, right, so like a lot of times AVs kind of get, you know, whether consciously and directly or sort of implicitly lumped in as sort of like a subcategory of cars, right? And cars are something that like some people are very passionate about in a positive way. Some people are very passionate about in a negative way, right? And a lot of people like yourself just kind of don't care that much about cars, right? Like it's just kind of something that, especially in the US, you kind of have to deal with. It's like a necessary evil, but like, you know, and so I think like there are filters there that like cars sort of impose a filter on who gets interested and who doesn't, and potentially maybe keeps out people who could be interested because they think of it, but aren't because they think of it as a car thing or something.
Yeah.
Totally. But then also like, you know, there's definitely like one of the really interesting things as I sort of was like really trying to understand where people are going wrong and understanding this stuff. It like people don't think about what driving is very consciously, and people don't really think much about cars either. Like our relationship with cars and driving is it's not particularly thoughtful, at least in this country. And so that can like drive, you know, put people wrong. Like, you know, level 2 system it's automating the steering, it's automating the brakes and acceleration. What else is there to driving, right? And that's why explaining what the dynamic driving task is
exactly
is so important. But like people, you know, there isn't really a lot of reason to necessarily think about it. I mean, as a human driver behind the wheel, you know, you are doing an amazing amount of perception and processing and planning, like completely subconsciously. And why go to all that, like the conscious effort, you know, that's so much harder when, you know, you just take care of that and don't really think about it and stuff. So I think there are some challenges, and I am optimistic personally, and I tend to be a little too optimistic sometimes about things. So that may well be the case here. I choose to believe that if we can frame this technology a little bit better and we can present it to people a little bit better, that more people will actually get interested in it.
It's that through, I'm sure the work you did at Pave as well, but like through the work that I've done with like introducing to people to an autonomous shuttle for the first time and seeing their perception of autonomous vehicles change from like, I thought this had to be like a supercar that lives in my garage the whole time, to like, no, autonomous shuttles are autonomous, and they're just the first link in the chain of public transportation that's going to make public transport better rather than just that. So it's not just about a car that you buy with an autonomous function on it. And all of that is not straightforward to a lot of people.
Yeah, I think David Wengler's point is really great here. AV sit in an uncanny valley of this that are really easy for humans. It's an activity that's really easy for humans, but really hard for computers. Traffic cone is obviously different to an orange witch hat and Halloween decorations, right? And then he says, getting to space is hard, but the benefits from it also seem like it's right. Like it's not
anything
something
that the military can touch. Like you've immediately got lots of funding that you can get into. with
Well, but
it.
I think what David is also talking about here is that I think for a lot of people, they saw, AV demos in 2015, 2016, 2013, that were like blew their minds, and they saw them and they're like, it's doing what I
We're
do.
so close. Yeah.
We're there. Like, why, like it's just going to be here and it's going to be the new iPhone or whatever. And then like that hasn't happened. And so, but I think that also creates the opportunity, right? Because now like this technology does need to be reframed, because honestly, like if it's just going to be more like endless hype cycle kind of repeating itself kind of stuff, like that's not good for anyone. And so, yeah, but David, that was a really good observation about the sort of uncanny valley nature of it, and like how we perceive how hard things are, and how hard things are for us versus how hard they are for computers. And with space, it's like no one questions that it's hard. It's just so
Because it's hard.
obviously
Yeah.
so hard. If anything, people wildly underestimate how hard some of the goals around space are, I think.
But then the technical approaches of different companies is totally different. So like a lot of the time on Twitter, for example, people will accuse me of being a competitor of Tesla, and that's why I'm saying the stuff that I say. But it's like we're not even in the same space, and the work that we're doing is not even applicable to one another. Like what we've done, like what Tesla's doing is they're trying to go level 5 everywhere, which is great, but that's hard. And who knows how long that's going to take. What we're doing is we're building essentially a line following robot that stops for anything that gets in its path. Like on a technical scope, that is so much simpler. But in terms of like being able to actually be a useful application, it's there, like for public transportation. That's all you really need to like take people from a pre-mapped area from their house to the local train station. It doesn't matter that you can't take it on highways between different towns and cities, because you'd never use that vehicle for that. So by limiting the technical scope and not going after the same thing, like the best, highest tech thing, you can actually solve more problems than if you tried to like have all the bells and whistles. It's in civil engineering, but it's like anyone can build a bridge that can stand up with enough time and resources, but only an engineer can build a bridge that barely stands. So finding things to specifications is really the art of engineering.
So and you said something there that was really amazing, and I don't know if everyone necessarily appreciates this, but like, so you called the product that you're working on a line following robot, and you freely admitted that it is less technically complex than other things, right? And again, the company you work for in the United States is not one that everyone's heard of, or even most people have heard of maybe, but like, so they're different, but you freely admitted that. And like, I really want to celebrate that for a sec, because I'll be honest, every time I've heard the word line following robot used in the AV space, it's been derogatory. And and I think there's an issue here that is worth sort of pulling out from under a rock and kind of putting some light on, because I think it gets into also what Terry and I were talking about, sort of community in the AV sector, and sort of why it is lacking in some important ways. And again, like, I get it when you're at these big companies that have raised a lot of money, like you're under so much pressure, and you do have to kind of find this balance of not hyping too much, but still hyping enough to keep those investors lining up for the next round. And like, it's hard, and I get that, but like, I do think that as a space, as an entire sector, we all need to move past this, it's kind of a tech snobbery, which again, it's probably, I'm being wildly optimistic about this even being possible, because like engineers are kind of just like this, I think, or at least a lot of them are. But I think like if we do recognize that there are some perception issues around this technology broadly, not just these individual companies, but broadly, like that being able to say like, yeah, like this one technological solution may not be the most sophisticated or the most cutting edge or this, that, or the other thing, but like if it solves a problem and it creates value, like that's a great thing. And like we shouldn't be like, oh, that's just like some totally other thing. Like, yes, like if someone has some technical sophistication and wants to get into what are the differences here, great. But I think like, the snobbery is not helping anyone. And I mean, except for maybe like when you're turning the screws on investors for the next round. But like, and even that, like, I question over the long run whether that really helps. And I think that like a little bit more solidarity in this space would probably be a good thing. And like, not necessarily having to put each other and each other's technologies down, but kind of celebrating that, like, you know, this is something that there's room for a lot of people to succeed in a lot of different ways. And there's everything from low speed shuttles to robotaxis to farming and mining and, you know, docks and warehouses and all of this cool stuff. And it's like different solutions are, you know, different problems, different tasks to be automated are going to take different kinds of robots essentially. Right. And some are, you know, some robots are a simple arm on a tool, an arm with a tool, and some robots are much more sophisticated than that. And one is not necessarily better than the other. If a simple robot does its job well and creates value, it's a good robot.
It's like if you need like a computer for work and all you're going to be doing on it is using the Microsoft Office suite and like replying to emails, do you need the latest graphics card for that job? Do you need like almost zero latency with your monitor? Like, there is a lot of cutting edge stuff that's happened with computing that you can buy, but like, do you need the best of the best to do the job that you're buying the thing for? And a lot of the time you're not going to be buying the most cutting edge thing because you don't need it. So like, why do we have that same approach with these? Whereas like, what it's now turning into like a pitch for the company, but like, where we excel is like we work with the regulator to figure out what it is that they need and slightly change our approach and the different systems that we have and maybe the physical profile of the vehicle to like knock that application that they've got in mind out of the park, rather than them having to like go down the list of potential suppliers and buying something off the shelf that might fit some of the requirements that they've got. So there's this like iterative, like, let's find the solution that's best for you, not like the most high-tech solution that your solution will fit, you know, like your application will fit under, but it's going to come in like 15 to 20 years or however long it's actually going to take.
Yeah, no, 100%. And, you know, and I think also the other piece of this that gets lost in part because of sort of the whole ideology around technology right now is that, like, you know, going for the most ambitious thing, yes, the rewards are going to be the highest, but like there are very real risks that this technology is that it's going to take a very long time to sort of, you know, create the kinds of generalizable capabilities that, you know, and I'm not just talking about, you know, a company like Tesla that's selling level 5 right now, but like people are, you know, saying, you know, we're going to be able to scale this super, super fast and we're going to be able to do it. And it's like, look, like obviously one of the reasons they're saying it is because no one can say they're wrong, right? We don't know. No one knows what the future holds, and we'll see. But I think, like, you know, it probably would be good for everyone to, and some of this has already happened, I think, in this space. Like we're in a very different place than we were in 2016, for sure. I give people a lot of credit. It's actually been really good to see some of the messaging really start to be a little bit more humble about this stuff. But like, I think a little bit of just like, yeah, humility might in the long run kind of be a good thing for just about everyone in this space, no matter how much funding they have and how much big their valuations are, because this stuff is hard and not everyone is going to succeed.
Even when you're going to like CES or something like that, I know you speak to companies and you're like, show me like the actual thing that you're working on. I can tell you like the number of like steer-by-wire manufacturers who like are like have steering racks on hand. And we're like, okay, let's get one of these steering racks. They're like, it's not actually ready yet. Whereas like they've got this like rig behind them at like these shows showing how amazing that everything is working and like, we're ready to work with you. It's like, all right, we're ready now. Like send us one. And they can't because they just can't. But their presence there is what's important because they're hoping to like raise their profile as opposed to, you know,
yeah, no, yeah. And I'll tell you, I mean, I have, you know, conversations with friends who, you know, people don't all know about or whatever, who are, you know, sort of buried in various of some of these AV companies. And I'll tell you, like, the confidence that gets projected on the outside is rarely matched when you get down to the folks who are in the trenches doing the real work. There's not a ton of bravado. You can't afford a lot of bravado when you're in the trenches on a problem that's this hard. And so I think
And then somewhere in that layer is someone getting really squeezed and who hates their job and is so close to burnout. Like, because because VCs respond to confidence, engineers have to deal with actual stuff. There's someone in that chain who hates what they're doing.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, so before we should probably wind this down before I give up my sources and make enemies in the AV industry. I'm not here to do that at all. I have nothing but respect and admiration for the companies who are and the people. It's really about the people for me. Like, to take on huge, complex, tough challenges is, it's an important part of what it means to be human. It's something that I have a ton of respect for. It's, one of the things that gives me the most meaning in my life is when I take on tough challenges, and win or lose, just sort of give it my all. And so a ton of respect for the folks in the business who are doing this. Definitely don't want to imply any disrespect, but reality is reality.
Yeah. Before we go, there was actually someone who I wanted you to meet. Is it okay if I just go get them?
Please. Yeah.
Yeah. Give me a second. I'll be right back.
I'll do a little dance for everyone. What's up, chat? Have you guys been enjoying the stream? Maybe. I was not expecting to have to be doing this solo for a minute here, especially after things got a little bit heavy there for a sec. I'm
on my way back. Hold on. Very close.
Yeah, I'm excited about this. I have no idea what to expect. This was not pre-planned. Oh my God! Oh no! Don't do this to me.
I read your book. Ed.
Oh my God!
I'm not happy. Not happy.
That's understandable, sir.
Next year or in 2 years' time, I'm going to come out with the best rebuttal to it. It's just 6 months away. I'm going to bring your book down in 6 to 24 months from now.
I'll count on you. You've never let me down before.
All right. Yeah, I'm very good at timelines.
How good are you at South African accents? Because that's a hard one.
There was this. Hold on. There's. Hold on.
This is killing me. Like, this is so hard to watch.
It's so weird. It's so weird seeing it. Hold on. There used to be a South African thing,
you lost
like a ticket operator. Yeah, I know. There used to be like a ticket operator every time I'd go to university, and the auto pay thing would be South African. So I'll do my impression of that.
Okay.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Take your ticket with you and pay at the auto pay before you return to your car.
Oh my God! If I known that you could do this on video, just to be completely clear, he did not mention that this was something. He sent me a still image earlier of this. He did not warn me that this was something that could even happen on video. Thank you for nearly causing me to have a stroke.
Sorry about that. I'll come back. There you go. We're back to normal now. That's over.
I feel like the potential for me to seriously mess with people using this is we're gonna have to talk after the stream is over about how I get this for Zoom, because if I could show up on Zoom calls, people would people would lose their minds. I just very nearly lost my mind.
I was quite amazed. Like it's almost there as far as being live. It's got a long way to go, but that's the thing. Like, I just get really into trying new things and figuring it out. And one night I was thinking, like, I wonder how hard deepfakes are, and apparently not very difficult and very easy to put in. But to make them believable is like that. What is that? March of the Nines?
Right. Oh my
Yeah.
God. You have filled my mind with like terrible ideas about what could be done with this technology. And boy, the ethicists were right to worry about deepfakes because
Yeah.
me with an Elon Musk deepfake is, I don't know. I don't know if
Well,
that's something the world is ready for.
I don't know. You said you are open to new opportunities.
I mean, I feel like Elon Musk dinner theater or something is gonna have to become a whole stream. So maybe we'll do like an all deepfake stream sometime too. We've got like, listen, this stream has been such a huge success, and I know because we've had more ideas for new streams than we currently have viewers. And they're all good and I all love them, and we're gonna do them. We're gonna watch embarrassing videos from our past. We're going to bust out your simulation, your trolley problem simulator, and have some fun with that. And we're gonna have to do something with deepfakes, and I'm like terrified to even explore those possibilities, but it's gonna be so much fun.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Thanks so much for having me on. This was really cool.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun. We're definitely going to do this again. And thank you to all three of you who are left. It was wonderful to have you all here. And Moody, this was great. And yeah, I'll see you on Twitter.
See ya.